So, Timothee Chalamet did a couple interesting things while promoting this movie, A Complete Unknown, and I think he was like balancing two sides of his interests. One, he wants a lot of people to see the movie, and two, he also wants like a nod of approval from like Bob Dylan heads, is what I'm going to call him. And so I break it down into the financing side and the head side. And so on the financing side, and this is like the marketing people, as well as Timmy, as well as like anybody that made the movie because they want to make money on it. And the goal is to like get the interest and attention of a general audience. And so you have to be able to communicate to a general audience that they should come out and watch this movie, right? That's the financing side. And then the head side, the goal for like Timmy, I think specifically, I think the financing side could like give a shit. But Timothy, sorry if you're watching this, Timothy, I'll call you from now on. Timothy's looking to get like the nod of approval from heads, right? Because he wants to let them know that he's not going to do a disservice to Bob Dylan, who he talks about as this great living American artist, which we'll get to eventually when we get into clips. But he doesn't want to do a disservice to Dylan, and he knows that Dylan fans in general tend to be quite possessive of Dylan and not trusting that people understand. A lot of this has to do with like Dylan's voice, and it's very divisive, and you either love it or you hate it, or you think he's like, overhyped or underhyped and whatever. Anyways, Timmy wants to get the nod of approval from the heads, and he also wants like people to watch the movie. And so the question is, for the financing side, like, what mediums can we appear on? And so the way I think about it is they want to be on popular stuff, right? They want to be on like SNL, they want to go on talk shows, probably like generally podcasts, and sort of like the magazine tour that's turned into like a magazine YouTube tour, like the GQ type stuff. And on that side, you're going to go, like I said, SNL and talk shows. And then also there's this college tour, which we'll talk about a little bit. But on the financing side, like, things like this are conventionally watched by a lot of people, right? Talk shows are watched by a lot of people. They also tend to get views on YouTube. And then with this college tour thing, which I'll explain later, it's more relying on virality. It's relying more on an internet thing. And then on the head side, the mediums tend to be podcasts and music shows. And the reason for this is you can show more authentically your interest in something. In this case, Timothee Chalamet's interest in Bob Dylan. And then also you can like spill a lot of knowledge. And you're not constrained by typical editing things. Like within TV, you're going to go on Kimmel and you're going to give a charming anecdote about how you learned Bob Dylan's voice, right? And people that are watching the TV are going to be like, oh, look how charming he is. Yes, Bob Dylan's voice is also a little bit difficult for me to listen to. I could imagine it'd be difficult to learn. And it's a charming story, and the skills that like are relied upon in a TV edit it's mostly charm, and you're using celebrity as a resource, and you're trying to get like normal people to come in, and you want to say like, yeah, I care a lot about this movie. I think you should come watch it. It's a good story. But with something like the podcast or the music show, the edit tends to be completely out of your hands, and you can have an idea of how it's going to be edited, right? So in Nardwuar and this Theo Von, I think is his name, show, you like can have an idea of how they're edited, but for the most part, you know that it's like this trapeze, or I don't know what you would call it. You're like walking across the wire, and you have to know that the edit's out of your hands, and what you say is like set in stone, unless you say something incredibly racist or whatever, which I assume he wouldn't do. I would hope he wouldn't do. And so with the podcast and the music shows, this is an opportunity both for failure to demonstrate knowledge and authenticity to the heads, but it's also this great opportunity. Like, if you're Timothee Chalamet and you really care about Bob Dylan, it's a great way to say to the Bob Dylan heads, I care a lot about this guy. Watch me talk about this guy and how much I know about him and the folk scene he came up in, and like how much I appreciate his art. And then with authenticity, it's like in this excuse me, I'm probably going to cut that, or maybe not. But in this Theo Von thing, like, he talks quite a bit about devotion and prep, and he does this by saying this is the only show he watched, and it was in the makeup trailer or something, and so the only access to technology he had while filming this movie is while he's in this makeup trailer, and it gives the impression that, yes, he's devoted to Bob Dylan, and also he has an authentic connection to the show. So he comes on the show, and I don't think he's like a typical guest. I think this is like one of those sort of incesty comedian podcasty things, and so he's not like a typical guest, and he comes on and he seems really sincere and he comes off authentic. And then to get back over onto this side, he does the college tour. And the college tour is interesting because Timothée Chalamet is not just relying on like heads, right? He's not relying on, if I get the heads to watch, I know that we're going to make enough money on this movie that it's justified and it's like going to be a success for everybody. He also knows that he has to get like normal people to come out, and it's not just going to be through like SNL and talk shows. He's also going to do it through this college tour. And so the way I found out about it is G sent me and my other siblings a Snapchat where Timothée Chalamet is just like bullying at the University of Minnesota, and Bob Dylan's from Minnesota, so like for the heads it's a bit of an homage, but I doubt heads are really seeing this because she's at the school and she is showing me that it's there. And what the college tour thing does, I think he bounces around from state to state. I know before this interview he's at like Vanderbilt maybe, so my assumption is he's going all over the country and he's like stopping at colleges, and this is like causing a lot of virality, it's like, I don't know, manufacturing quite a bit of virality, and it's a way to get like college age students to come watch the movie. And the other interesting thing about this is like Dylan's 1920 when the movie starts, and so my assumption is that through going out to college students, and he might even say this, maybe that's where I'm getting it from, is that this is like a story about a college age kid, and it's like a story that college age kids could connect to, and then they could fall in love with the music of Dylan much in the same way that that Chalamet fell in love with the music of Dylan. Yeah. Is there anything else I'm missing here? No, I think like the skills that are required within. Oh, I guess okay. So back to this editing point, like when you're doing like viral things like the college tour, you're relying mostly on like things out of your control. Much like I'm gonna cut that. What else do I want to talk about? Okay, yeah, I think All right, I'll pick it back up. I think basically, just to reiterate like what's important with each one, right? So if you're on Jimmy Kimmel, you're going to want to look handsome, you're going to want to go on the show, and you're going to want to be charming, you're going to want to have like good, well-prepared anecdotes that are easy enough that a general audience can understand. One, it was hard to make this movie. I care a lot about this movie, and you should come watch this movie. And so anecdotes are a resource, and then celebrity's a resource. I think he's just quite popular. He's a bit of a heartthrob. That might be divisive, but I think in general he's a bit of a heartthrob. And so you see him on TV and you might be like, okay, I'll go watch it. And then with the college tour, the skills you're relying on are like just appearance. So again, this is kind of celebrity, right? Like it's a shock that Timothée Chalamet is at the University of Minnesota campus as well as whatever other campus he stopped by. I'm assuming he didn't make it to Hawaii, but it's mostly lower 48, I would assume. And then also, there's like a tinge of homage, and this is just maybe because I'm a Minnesota guy, and I know that one of the first places he visited was the Gophers, and where Dylan came up in Dinkytown, and so it's a nice little homage. So it's a little bit of the head side as well. And then the skills that you're relying on with podcasts it's mostly authenticity, and your resources are their conversation. Like you just have to be good at talking about the things that you care about, and then you can communicate devotion and prep and all the same things that are difficult to communicate within the talk shows and the TV edit. And then the last bit, the skills you rely on in the music show, is like sharing and spilling knowledge, and then demonstrating genuine connection. So I don't think I have anything else, but I might jump into clips just to give examples of what he's doing in each of these things and like what's cool about it and what I think is like impressive, because I think he did a great job of balancing both the financing interests as well as like the head interests, and also the movie itself is really good. And I think Chalamet does like a good job, right? Because promoting a Bob Dylan biopic is tricky. On the marketing side, you obviously want to get it out in the open to as many channels as you can, and like the popular channels, but if you, Timothée Chalamet, are worried that the heads are not going to like it, you have to be able to convince them to come out and watch the movie and that you give a shit about Bob Dylan. And you can't do that by going on Kimmel and giving an anecdote about the 60s New York City folk scene and all about Dylan's albums, because that's going to alienate like the general audience. And you also can't like accomplish, convincing the heads that you care about Bob Dylan by going on that same platform and just talking about, I don't know, like how hard it was to learn Dylan's voice. Because if you do that, it's just not going to be enough for the heads to be convinced that you care. And so him going on things like Nardwuar and this Theo Von show and going around the country are just like good ways to satisfy both the head side as well as the financing side. So yeah, the conclusion is he did a really interesting thing. And I think he talked to Sorsha, I think is how you pronounce her name, and he mentioned that something about how he was promoting Beautiful Boy.
Beautiful Boy was coming out at that time, and that was basically like the second quote-unquote big-ish movie I was in, and I was having a hard time getting, people on the phone to help me figure out my schedule, where I was going to go, and I wanted to kind of do a regional tour and visit places in the States that were affected by that story, so the intent was pure.
At the time, and so I think potentially this is something he does in general, but this is the first time I noticed it, and the first video I came across was the Nardwuar one, and it's because I like Dylan. And as a head, I was nervous about this movie because I really love Bob Dylan, not in like the same way that I would get pissed off if he talked about his voice on Kimmel, but like I like Bob Dylan, and I was worried that this was just like an Oscar grab. Hey, what's up? This is Otto Nelson's editor, and I just wanted to quickly interject here and say it's a little bit like a Ryan Gosling, half Nelson situation where maybe Timothee Chalamet should have won for Call Me by Your Name, but he didn't, and much in the way that Ryan Gosling didn't win for half Nelson. And then you have like a weird, he hasn't won an award, but he probably should because he's like a really good actor, and so like the fear is for like the Dylan side is, I guess is what I'm saying is like the fear is that he is just doing this Dylan movie to win an Oscar because like he feels like he's owed one because he's a good actor, which I don't think is the case, but you could see how that could be a fear of people that really love Bob Dylan, such as myself. All right, I'm gonna get back to editing because he's pissed off this hasn't come out yet. I like Bob Dylan, and I was worried that this was just like an Oscar grab, which is another point. I'm wondering, does this hurt his chances at winning an Oscar? Because you look at the last guy that won an Oscar with a biopic, which is Rami Malek, and that fool's sitting at like 13 million views, talking about how he learned Freddie Mercury's voice, right? But in the case of Freddie Mercury's voice, it's a little bit different because his voice is just like sort of widely accepted as beautiful, and Dylan's voice is just not. And they might be equally difficult to learn, but I think the idea of learning to sing operatically or, whatever is maybe more attractive, and that's why the Rami Malek video did numbers, and like Timmy's didn't really do numbers. And so I'm wondering if by not devoting as much attention to that, maybe he spent less time with like the anecdotes and the charm, and like by spending time doing these things, does it hurt his chance of an Oscar? I don't know. I mean, not that I care, but I have a feeling he will win, in which case like this strategy is potentially adoptable by other people come time to promote a new biopic, but it's probably only for like crazy devoted fans. Like maybe if Lucas Hedges made a Townes Van Zandt movie, he would have to do the same thing, but I don't think it's replicable. And I think, which is what makes it so interesting, because it seems like he just kind of thought of it himself. It's like completely bespoke, really creative, or maybe he's got a team. If somebody knows, let me know. I'll get into the clips a little bit, and we'll go into why they're interesting. But yeah, well done, Timmy. Okay, so assuming I didn't ramble too much, we'll see if this just like cuts in randomly in the middle of it. I mean, I would assume I did an all right job. I felt like it was okay, so we'll see. I'll get better at this talking head stuff. But basically, yeah, we're gonna do a little clip review, and we'll start with the Nardwuar stuff because I think it's probably the best at showing like he spills knowledge. I'm not gonna show all of it, but this little Arlo Guthrie clip is pretty good.
And I have a gift for you. It's relating to the movie. It is Arlo
Guthrie, wow. Arlo Guthrie, Woody Guthrie's son. Unbelievable.
an original promo poster from 1969. What can you say about Arlo Guthrie?
Arlo Guthrie first opened the door when a vagabond Bob Dylan knocked on the door of Woody Guthrie and was sort of stunned by this guy's appearance, Bob that is. And Bob said, "Is Woody home?" And I think the nanny was like, get off the property, But Arlo had a career in his own right.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just like this kind of stuff all throughout where he just shows how much he knows about Bob Dylan, and he spills a ton of knowledge, and then it's also charming in the sense that Nardwuar talks to him about his own life, and he talks a lot about like hip hop from when he was growing up, I think it's like 2012 to 2015. So like Kid Cudi talks about Lil B a little bit after this. But yeah, it's cool because he's able to convince like somebody that really likes Dylan that he's also into Dylan. Like the only way you're going to know about the Arlo Guthrie story is if like you read a biography about him, or if somebody gave you a list of 120 facts and then you remember them all before this interview, in which case it's also a very impressive type of performance, and it's convincing enough for me, someone who really loves Dylan, that Timothee Chalamet gives a, you know, he cares a lot. He cares a lot about Dylan. Also in this, I think he knows what he's doing, because I'm probably going to cut in, hey, what's up? You've seen all the other clips. I'm going to cut in here because he gives him this Skrillex album, and then Timothee Chalamet talks about this guy. And so apparently this guy, well, let's get his name.
Kid Cudi, Summertime, fantastic. And Young Lean, shout out Aiden Zamiri over there.
So this guy, Aiden Zamiri, is like recording the whole press thing. So I think Timothee Chalamet knows he's doing something really interesting. Which, I mean, I don't really think it's narcissistic. It's kind of cool. I would love to see him talk about this at some point. If he wants to do an interview, I'll interview him about it. I'm in New York City. I can walk. We can do it in in a park somewhere. Yeah, let's go on to a different clip. Okay, yeah, so this is the virality, the college campus thing. And this is him trying to demonstrate, or trying to get the word out about this story that he thinks, you know, young people will really resonate with. Another thing to note is he has all his own, like, merch, it seems like, the Complete Unknown merch. And he's wearing, like, pretty steezy outfits. We'll get to the Theo Von thing. He looks pretty steezy. But yeah, this clip is just, like, him rattling off who's going to win. I think this is more performance than actual interest. But either way, it like comes off as genuine and fun, and a bunch of college kids are going to see this, as well as just a general audience, which the financing side is going to be interested in, obviously. So yeah, we'll watch this clip.
State 8 wins in a row, 11 all-conference players. This should be a comfortable, easy win for them. Breaking it down. This guy's a great actor.
Yeah, so he does this. He also bounces around. My one problem is he says truncated a bunch. Not in this interview, but just in like the whole college thing in general. And yeah, so he goes from like Minnesota to wherever he goes, and then he pops into Theo Von's, and he also says truncated. So great job, you know, getting the virality, and just the general audience stuff with the college game day. Let's see. And then let's go to the Kimmel video. Oh, he didn't go. Oh, he didn't go on Fallon. That's kind of fun. What's the other guy's name? Kimmel. Maybe they got beef. Wait, he didn't go on. Oh no, he went on this guy too. Oh no, he went on. Oh, Colbert. Okay. Okay, so this is like a classic talk show setup of question rehearsed, anecdote rehearsed. You're relying on charm. You're relying on celebrity. You're relying on like the fact that people want to look at you and listen to you. And what you're trying to do is like convince normal people to watch the movie because it's nice. It's a good story.
How familiar were you with Dylan before you got this gig?
Truthfully, not very educated. It was a friend of my dad's was a Dylanologist, had a striking portrait of Dylan on his wall growing up, but knew little about him. I got approached with the material and I YouTubed Bob Dylan, and before his music even popped up, there were these press conferences that popped up from 1965 where he's so confrontational in his media appearances, and he's so...
Right, so this is nice. He's like, to the general audience, he's like, I'm just like you. I'm not super into Bob Dylan either before I like got into Bob Dylan. And this movie can be the thing that gets you into Bob Dylan. And he's charming, he's handsome, he's wearing yellow, it's an approachable color. Yeah, so I think it's really good. It's obviously not like something that Dylan head's necessarily going to watch. So a statement like that is probably not going to offend him because the Dylan head's going to watch the Nardwuar interview. And the last bit is this Theo Von, and then I'll be done with the clip review.
Like the ones that...
Yeah, we don't have like a lot of celebrities on,
you know what
really.
I'm saying? Yeah, I never really use that word, but...
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't think...
Oh, that shit's kind of tired, where he talks about not using the word celebrity. But it's okay. Like, he's nervous, I think. But I think it's a bit tired. He does seem like a genuine guy. But if he would have ignored it, it would have felt more genuine to me. But it's a little bit nitpicky. He's doing a great job.
I think so. Look, man, I think...
I feel like this part of the job is that, though. Because when I'm working, I'm really very much in it, you know what I mean? And then here... Anyway.
Yeah, actors get...
See, like, that's also good because I think he like spills a little bit there authentically, or maybe he's performing and he's tricking me, in which case, well done, Timothee Chalamet. But like, it seems to me that he's not comfortable promoting movies in the same way that like maybe a Rami Malek is, you know, going on whatever talk show. And so like, he is being genuine and authentic in that this makes him uncomfortable, and he's trying to find a way to do it himself. And so he actually seems quite uncomfortable here. All right, let me see if I can find where they're just like talking about colleges. See, like, the outfit here is, you know, it's pretty steezy. I'm trying to find the college stuff, so I'm just watching it. But yeah, he looks cool. It looks like, I think he dresses himself too, it looks like, in like a compliment way. Because, like, usually fools that are dressed by other people wear tighter clothes, or like really strange clothes.
I was very much in the time period of the movie the whole time, trying to stay without being a dick, you know, within the bounds of the character. But somebody in the hair and makeup trailer, at the end of the day, they would play this podcast, you know, which is how I discovered it. And particularly the episodes with the garbage man and sort of like the real...
Right, so this is nice. So he talks about how doesn't want to be a dick, but he was living in the times, meaning, I'm assuming he wasn't on technology, and this show was playing in the hair and makeup trailer, and like, that's his connection, which is like authentic. Like, that's a great thing that podcasts do. They like allow you to be authentic. I really want to find this truncated thing, and then I'll be done.
The life episodes and what?
Yeah, Timothy does a great job promoting this movie. It's super interesting. I don't know if it's applicable or like a copyable strategy. Yeah, and I've watched like way too many Timothee Chalamet videos. I feel like, I don't know, like a Stan might do this, but yeah, he's cool. Yeah, well done, Timothy.